Do you guys want to learn how to drift inside of Need for Speed Heat so you can show off to all of your friends that you're one of those cool Tokyo Drift kings or queens? Well, then this video is for you guys, because I'm going to show you how to drift inside of Need for Speed Heat, and also the settings that I use when drifting inside of Need for Speed Heat. I'm also going to show you some really good practice locations so you can really hone in on your skills when it comes to drifting, the basics when it comes to drifting, and also towards the end of the video, I'm going to actually throw in something that I have not seen anyone cover when it comes to having something really cool, like a little Easter egg that you probably didn't know that you can use here inside of Need for Speed Heat. So we're going to cover all that towards the end of the video, but firstly, we're going to talk about the settings that we're going to use for our cars here. So if this interests you, you know what to do. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying it. Let me know in the comments what other kind of topics you want to talk about in the video and what you thought about for this video. So let's go ahead and talk about these settings. All right, so the performance for our car here. So for me, I'm using the Mazda RX-7. You can use pretty much any kind of car that you like that is rear-wheel drive, but I use the Mazda RX-7 here. For the engine, to start off, the parts that I use pretty much all super parts. You know, you can go more, but I pretty much just start off real basic with super parts for the actual engine here, the crankshaft and all that. Just enough power to get the wheels spinning under the car to kind of lose control to initiate the drift there. So pretty much all of the four options here, I use pretty much just simple super parts here. Now for the turbo, I use the ultimate turbocharger. Mainly this is a preference reason because it sounds like one of those cool Tokyo Drift cars. You know what I'm talking about. You gotta have some fun with it. So I use the ultimate turbocharger mainly for the sounds. It does kind of help out a little bit when it comes to like the performance, but you know, you don't have to really worry too much when it comes to the turbocharger. Now the NOS, that's another preference. If you drift with NOS, let me know. Someone please comment below. If you drift with NOS, I gotta see this. We're gonna have to try this out later. That'd be kind of cool. So another preference thing there, whatever NOS you want to use, but not really gonna be honing in on that for the video today. So for the chassis here, we're gonna start with the suspension. I use the Super Speed Cross suspension. I know they have a drift suspension as well that you can use, but for me in this build specifically, I use the Speed Cross suspension. I use the super one there. You can actually see on the bottom left, it actually does help out a little bit when it comes to drifting. So I do use this one for, you know, and it's the super one, so it's a little bit more when it comes to the performance on the car there. So if you want to use it exactly the build that I'm using here, I use the Speed Cross super suspension. Now coming over to the brakes, we are going to be covering the handbrake mainly in this video, but having good brakes is actually a pretty good thing too. So you can actually, you know, not really too awful worried about it, but it does help out in some sticky situations. So I use the Elite brakes when it comes to this here. So if you pick up some pretty good brakes, then you're doing pretty good. So for the brakes there, I use the Elite brakes. Now, believe it or not, for the tires, I do use Elite drag tires. I know some people probably are shocked about that because they do have drift tires in here. All right, so you can use drift tires. I'm not going against it. They even have the Pro drift tires that you can even use as well. But for me in this build, I use the drag tires mainly for the acceleration. All right, so if I want to really kind of get my car to spin off into the drift there, I go with the Elite drag tires. All right, so you can, if you want to do it exactly how my build is, I'm going to show you exactly step by step if you can pick up some Elite drag tires or drift tires. It's completely up to you. So coming over here to the drivetrain here, for the clutch, I just use the Super Clutch. And again, there's a couple of different options you can choose from, but for this build specifically, I use the Super Clutch. Coming over to the gearbox, I use the Super 5-speed gearbox for this build here. Of course, there is 4-speed and other ones there too, but because there's some drift cars have 4 speeds that you can pick and choose from. But for this one, I use the Super 5-speed for the gearbox on that one. And of course, over to the differential, I use the drift differential. All right, I use the Pro one specifically. They do have a couple other ones that you can pick and choose from that does kind of help out a little bit when it comes to drifting. But for this case, you know, you have the Sport drift differential, but I go for this one. I go with the the Pro drift differential. If you want to pick that up, it'll definitely help out a little bit more too. And you can see the little icon is right at drift. All right, so as long as it's kind of in the ballpark there, you know, you want to get it as close as it can to drift, and you will see the difference when it comes to actually having really good settings, because I was actually fighting a lot when it comes to cars and builds on trying to get them to drift. And if you feel like the car is not really wanting to drift, make sure to check the settings and the tune that you have for your car. It'll make a world of a difference. All right, and then of course the auxiliary, completely up to you, but we won't be covering that for anything on this. But the next step now is we're gonna show off some really good basic places. All right, so I want to go and show some really good places to actually practice drifting. All right, so I want to show you the pretty much the starting place that I learned to drift. All right, and so we're gonna take you there and show you some of the cool, fun little things with that. All right, guys, so this is actually probably the best place to actually start to learn to drift, and it's gonna be right outside where you spawn at the first garage here at the massive abandoned speedway. And there's actually a lot of cool places out here in the abandoned speedway that you can actually practice drifting for the first time. And you know, a lot of open spaces, so you don't have to worry about running into stuff. No cars or anything. It's just you and the open space. Some really cool stuff. I do also recommend, if you can, try to do a manual car. Okay, so I can like drift, or I can change going into third gear, second gear, first gear. If you can do it in manuals, it will help out. You know, if you do it in automatic, it kind of helps, like when you want to downshift and all that. You know, we'll cover that here later on in the video. So I do recommend, if you can, try to do it in manual mode. All right, so I'm gonna kind of go over the real basic of how to drift in Need for Speed Heat. It's actually a lot simpler than you probably would think. So to initiate the drift, the most basic way is to just go into the curve. So if I'm gassing it and I'm going to the turn, I'm gonna let off the gas, I'm gonna turn, and I'm gonna gas it. All right, simple as that, and it will initiate the drift. Really, really basic. Okay, so we go into the turn, let off the gas, turn, and gas, and now we have initiated a drift. Pretty simple. All right, so that is the most basic way. Now, once you initiate the drift, you want to make sure you maintain the drift line. What does that mean? That means that once you actually start drifting, you want to make sure that you're swinging left and right. You're steering left and right to maintain that drift. All right. So off the gas, turn into the gas. We're going left and right. All right. We're not even going to worry about the track right now. I'm just going to be doing some basic little turns. All right. Left and right, left and right. So once you kind of get that down of getting used to the car, don't even worry about the track yet. Just get used to how you can handle the car. Bringing it in, making like smaller little circles. You can bring it out for make wider circles. In fact, you can even, this is where the manual comes in, you can downshift and make smaller circles. So if you can make smaller circles and then bring it back to third gear, you can make wider circles. You will see the difference on the higher the gear, the wider the circle. All right, so keep in mind that will help you out in sticky situations if you want to really go into a turn. And this is also where handbraking comes into play. All right, so now we're going to cover the handbraking portion of this. So the handbraking, the exact same way. We're going to let off the gas, turn into the turn, but we're going to handbrake it. All right, and it's going to lock up your back wheels. All right, once you initiate the handbrake and you lock up those back wheels just like that, and you see the car turning, you're going to let go of the handbrake. All right, and then that's when you gas it. All right, and you want to counter steer it, and it will aggressively lock up the car and really get those wide turns. Okay, so that will help out if you're going really fast and you're wanting to get into those really, really, really sharp turns. And that's where it helps with downshifting too, because you want to kind of keep your RPMs high. All right, so that's going to keep the wheels spinning. So if I'm coming in here and I'm getting a little bit of speed, you know, well, I mean, I'm not really getting a lot of speed, but yeah, right here. So like, if I'm going pretty fast, right? Let's say I'm going down this little straightaway, and I let go, handbrake, and then gas it. You can see how it will help out coming from a really, really fast speed to making those really, really sharp turns, okay? So that is the basics of how to handbrake and going into your basic turns and all that and how to maintain that drift, okay? So here's another tip, okay? So we have these drift zones. You will see these all over. You can see these little, like, it will say like right here, the drift zone. All right, so how to actually complete these in a best way, some tips that you probably didn't know about these is a lot of people think that they're like races. You have to be super fast about it. You don't even have to be super fast. You just want to make sure that you maintain a constant drift. The handbrake will help out with that. When you're on long straightaways, you can do some pretty crazy handbrake drifts, all right? So here's another thing. If you are starting your drift and then now it's gonna have the multiplier, all right? So it's gonna build up your score the more you drift, all right? See, now it's at 3, then it goes into 4. Now, if you start, I missed the checkpoint there, but if you start hitting stuff, like say like these little like fences and stuff, it will not destroy your score. Now, if you hit something that is static, which is like cars or buildings, your score will actually go away. So you don't even have to stay on the track. If you want to like get a good score, you can actually go off of the track. You don't even have to stay on the track. As long as you keep a consistent like drift going, you can wiggle all around the place. You just don't want to go too far from the actual trail, or else the zone will stop. So as long as you can keep the drift going here, and we'll show the handbrake action here, going really fast off the brake, handbrake, and then going into it. Now we want to downshift, and we want to make sure we're in some high RPMs. So we want to make sure when it's slower speeds, the lower the gear. All right, and then handbrake, gas in it, handbrake, gas, and we can even downshift, all that good stuff. So that's the trick about these trial zones, is that you don't have to worry about staying on the course. As long as you keep the drift going, you can hit all the stuff. If I hit these little fences and stuff, you can go outside of the track. Your score will keep climbing, all right? So that's how a tip to actually get those cool little drift zones there. And that's all around the world, you know, all of the drift sections that you can have all throughout the world. If you go to the activities tab, you can see all of the drift activities all around. It works all inside of those there too. So if you ever want to do those, you can do those in this will. All right, guys, so this is actually the other area that I like to go to practice drifting. And to find this is actually the area where you spawn in right here. There's the racetrack. It's gonna be right up here near the city. It's like its own little island. I call this like Drift Island, okay? There's a lot of sections out here that you can use drifting. There's a drift trial out here that covers the whole island, which is really cool. There are 2 drift zones as well down here. And there's a big dome that you can actually drift around, okay? So this is actually really cool because this is now starting to get more advanced, because now you have other obstacles and you even have cars that you can practice drifting around. All right, so as we go around here, I'm gonna show you, we have the drift trial here. So the cool thing about this place is you can maintain that wide drift line like I was talking about, how we're like in the 3rd gear, but now we have obstacles, all right? So you don't want to hit the cars or the building because that will actually kill your score, but you can hit the benches and other stuff. So almost hit the car just then. That's kind of funny. But yeah, so as you kind of go around here, you can practice all the different areas, downshifting to like, you know, 2nd gear and those tighter turns for those tighter circles, and then going back to the higher gears to have those longer, wider circles, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So you can actually go around that, and you can just keep going around the little trail, the little drift zones that they have here. Just keeping it going and just practice going around the cars, and it will help you actually maintaining that line, okay? So boom, I hit the wall, my score will end. All right, so you just want to practice basically the handle of the car when it's drifting. You want to do this so much to where you can feel very confident that you can control the car when it's drifting, okay? And then again, here we go, downshift into 2nd gear, and then we can bring it back to 3rd and get those wider turns here. And just like in this, you just want to make sure you're consistently drifting, okay? So it does not matter about how long it takes for you to do the trial or the zone. You just want to make sure that you're consistently drifting. All right, so there's another area right over here as well where the drift tile is. And this is where I really spent a lot of my time too once I got more comfortable with drifting. Was in this area here. The drift trial, this one here, I spent a bunch of time on, okay? That's where you can find the drift trial there. And the drift zone here is actually really good too. This will help out because this one is another, kind of like the dome, but you'll see why if we go into this drift zone here. So we got the wide drift, but then it goes immediately to a short drift. So this is where you want to handbrake it, downshift to second gear, maybe not first. And then you keep it going like that, and then back to third, all that good stuff. So it kind of works both ways of going into a long, wide drift and then handbraking down to a short drift, you know? So it's actually kind of cool to have a couple of those sections there to where you can practice those wide circles and those small circles. And you can also go either way on the drift sections here too, so you could go in reverse if you want to practice going the other way. You know, so that way you can hone in on your skills on going right or going left. So if you ever want to try that out too, go the other way. Try out seeing what works best for you and really honing in on your skills there. And this here is the other area that I love to practice drifting at. And if you want to know where this is, it's the top side of West Side here. It's going to have like a couple little areas that you can drift around, these little domes and all that. There's going to be some drift trials, some areas out here that you have drift zones, and it's a lot of fun to practice that drifting because you have other obstacles and even cars at this place as well that you can like practice your drifting and honing in on your skills and practice those lines. So the drift trials here are actually really fun, and the drift zones as well, so it's a little different. Of course, there's a lot of other areas that you can actually go and practice your drifting, but this is the areas that I spent most of my time to learn drifting. So if you want to come out here, check out all the places that they have. All right, guys, so this is actually the other area that I love to come and drift at. It's actually at the bottom left. It's in Port Murphy, and it's going to be the shipping yard here. All of the shipping containers. This is actually a really good place if you want to just learn how to drift and not have to worry about traffic. And there's actually a lot of cool, fun little places to try to drift into. You can actually get kind of creative with it, and it will help you get into some really tight corners and stuff. So I'm actually gonna cover something really cool in this video of how to do some trick drifting. All right, so what I mean by that is like actually honing in on the arches that I was talking about, having the small gear and the low, like the high gear, the small circles and the large circles. Okay, so this is like kind of like some cool stuff you can do, and I will do this for hours. So I kind of go to these little containers here, and you can actually see I try to drift as close as I can to the containers here without hitting them, and it just makes it for fun. You know, like you're thinking of it as like if you're going on a current corner and you're thinking of the apex point on the corner. All right, so if you want to like drift around, and you know, if in racing the apex point is like the center of the turn, you kind of think of that when you're going into like these types of like drift tricks that I call them. And the apex point is technically the obstacles here. So I want to try to get as close as I can to hitting them without actually hitting them. So it can actually help you practice a little bit when it comes to the handling of drifting. And it's just a lot of fun to actually, you know, do that. And then you can downshift and go into like smaller gears. So you can actually have like a smaller circle and try to do it that way, and then bring it back to third. You know, it'll help you practice downshifting and upshifting when you're actually doing the drifting and all that. And it's okay if you hit, you know, stuff like that too, but like there's a lot of areas out here that you can actually like really just mess around with, and you know, try to get close to the containers and just, you know, use those as like guidance points of like, oh yeah, so this is what I'm going to try to get close to, and you'll be like Ken Block in no time. So think of this as like just like a little practice grounds, and as you're going in and you're taking this out into the actual streets that you're getting better, and when you're going into turns, how do you want to approach them? How do you want to go into the drifts here and be able to get into those tight corners and all that, you know, being chased from the cops or anything like that, getting those slick moves, as I call them. Now I'm going to show you the other thing I was talking about. This is not a tip for the bonus here. This is actually something that I don't know if you knew that you can do, But if you actually change your views, right? So we have the close, the chase, rear, far. Then if you hit it one more time, it goes into like this little like below the car view. So what's cool about this is when you start drifting, it actually kind of goes on the side of the car like this. And it has like a really cool cinematic view. So if you really want to get some cool like cinematic content or anything, or if you just love to watch your car sliding and it looks like one of those drones that are chasing the drift cars, this is a really cool way that you can actually implement this. Now, I don't know if the developers actually threw this in for drifting specifically. I'm sure this camera has a name. I don't know what the name of it is, but you know, I'm sure you can do this during racing, but it really feels like you get the most out of it when you're drifting. It goes sideways. It kind of has like this cool sideways feel to it. So I run into stuff. But like even like when it comes to like doing donuts, right? So if you're spinning around doing donuts, the camera kind of does its own thing, and it looks like, you know, you're doing like a cinematic camera feel, right? So I think that's kind of cool. I don't know if that's just like a nod from the developers there. And the other cool thing is if you leave your car here for a second, it will actually do a cinematic pan. If you don't move, if you don't touch the controller or anything, the camera will automatically go into like a really cool cinematic feel, which I don't think any of the other cameras do. But this one's kind of cool. I like it. I don't know. This is more of a preference thing that I like to add, a little bonus thing that I don't think I've seen anybody do. I'm sure somebody somewhere has probably covered it, but I really like it. It's really cool to kind of show off the drifting in this game, and you kind of get into the feels, and it actually helps out a little bit too when I'm wanting to look at the targets, when I'm trying to get it as really close as I can. I'm not being obscured by the car. I can get a really good feel on the objective of like how close I want to get to those objects and stuff. So it's really cool, cinematic feel to it. So maybe this helps you guys out. If this really did, you know what to do. Leave me a comment down below saying, hey, this really helped me out. This is really cool. Or maybe I should cover other things inside the video. If there's anything else that you want me to cover as far as topic-wise, let me know in the comments. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new here too and you want to see more content just like this. I actually haven't done a lot of content like this on the channel, so I'm hoping that maybe somebody got something out of it and you want to see more of this. So that will definitely let me know if you guys really like it. But hey, maybe this other video right here will help you out with something really cool too if you're wanting to get into streaming. So go check out that video and I'll see you guys over there.